you're looking for a job, you know that there's tons of confusing advice out there floating around. Your resume must always be 2 pages long. Your resume should never, under any circumstances, be more than 1 page long. You should always submit a cover letter. You should never submit a cover letter. You should be sure you have that open to work banner on your LinkedIn platform. Oh my gosh, if you have the LinkedIn platform banner that says open to work, people are going to think you're desperate. It's enough to make your head explode. So, how do you navigate all of this? How do you decide who's guiding you correctly? How do you know who's telling something that is going to resonate in your chosen field? Well, there are a couple of steps that you can take here. The first is simply to ask the person why. Now, this is harder if it's just someone who's, making a video like this, talking about how all of this is definitely always the case or never the case. But if a human being tells you this, if you're in conversation and someone says, oh, you have to be networking with at least 25 people every day, then you can say, oh, gosh, 25 seems like a lot. Can you tell me why that is? And just see if that person has anything, first of all, that's helpful, like if they can give you a context for it, a rationale for it, but also it will give you a lot of information about the field in which that person works. It may very well be that, let's say, that person works in sales, in which case a really high number of contacts makes a degree of sense, right? That's kind of what they do. But if that's not anything like what you do, you can definitely lower your own expectations for how many people you're supposed to be networking with day to day. So, asking those questions is a really good starting point. But the other thing that you can do is filter these pieces of advice through your own lens of common sense. I know that a lot of times these people say things like they're very authoritative. I have all of the answers. I've worked as a recruiter, or whatever the heck it is. And the thing is, they're still only really talking about things from their own perspective. There aren't really tons of concrete facts in this job searching process. So it can get really confusing. You can feel very stuck and confounded when you're reading through all of these pieces of advice. So think it through. So if someone says, for instance, your resume must always be no longer than a single page, which I know is kind of the rule that we all hear out there. What you get to do is think about what you've done in your life, how that experience relates to what you want to do next, and make a determination about what that means for the overall length of your resume. Now, I'll add in here that generally I don't recommend going beyond 2 pages, except in specific circumstances like for federal jobs or if you are in medicine, one of those fields where it's just kind of more typical to have a CV instead of a resume. But for most of us, I don't recommend going much longer than 2 pages because my fear is that the third and fourth pages won't get read. So that's just kind of what that is. The other thing is you'll see a lot of stuff about how you should never write a cover letter. Again, filter this through your own lens of common sense. If you were on the other side of things, would you want to see a cover letter? Can you imagine that you might have coworkers who would want to see a cover letter? Does the job description say attach a cover letter? Because if it does, they're expecting one, right? And then all of those other pieces, right? When you look at that open to work banner on a LinkedIn profile, do you think, oh, this person is desperate? Or do you think, oh, this person is open to work? Filter all of these pieces of advice through your own lenses and see what feels right to you and what makes sense to you, because there isn't really a one size fits all approach to any of this stuff. So your own judgment is really going to guide you well in this process. The other thing that people will say a lot is XYZ platform is totally dead. And same kind of idea here. You're going to want to take that with a grain of salt, but then you're going to want to look at that platform yourself and see what's going on there. Do there appear to be job postings that are interesting to you? Does it seem like people in your circles are having decent results, finding things to apply for, and maybe getting interviews from that platform? These are all the kinds of things that you're going to consider as you're taking in all of these bombarding bits of advice that people have for you. The thing I've noticed is people have these very strong opinions about job search stuff, but those opinions aren't always grounded in actual facts. And they're often the kinds of things that are relevant only to very specific kinds of industries or careers. So if your doctor aunt gives you a piece of advice about how to apply for jobs, remember that she's a doctor and you're not, or that she's not a doctor and you are, whatever the case may be. So you'll just kind of want to work through this all and try not to get too panicky about it. I know that because people are so authoritative when they give this advice, it can feel like therefore you're doing everything wrong. And chances are very good that you're not doing everything wrong. What you're probably running into is that the job search is really kind of tough right now. Anyone will tell you that. Talk to a recruiter, talk to a career counselor. We're all seeing it. Doesn't mean that there aren't jobs. It just means that it's proving to be a much longer journey to get you where you want to be. So you're probably not doing anything wrong. However, there are probably a few things you can do to strengthen your job search. And that's when you decide you're going to call on someone like me who does this for a living. It doesn't have to be a career counselor or coach. You can absolutely rely on the advice of a recruiter friend if it's someone who recruits within your industry. If you still have access to your college or university's career office, you can ask them for advice. You could ask a friend who works in your field what they're seeing. So this doesn't always have to be something where you pay. You can also look for a workforce center near you. Those can be a little bit hit or miss. So don't feel, excuse me, don't feel weird or uncomfortable if you get not a ton of attention from them, or if they're trying to slot you in jobs that are similar to the ones you've had, even though you don't want to do that anymore. But it's another option that's out there for you. And do let me know if you have any questions about any of this, because I know it can feel a lot like a minefield out there. It's just so much information to digest and to figure out what to do with. So let me know if you have any questions, and let me know if there are any specific topics you would like me to see or you would like me to cover in the future. And have a good rest of your week.